I'd like to thank you for allowing me at your homes for this 30th episode of Esoteric Science Roundtable. This evening's discussion will touch upon esoteric healing. It is a vast subject, but I'm going to try to touch upon the ABCs and emphasize the basic aspects of it. When we consider healing and health, some of the terms that come to mind: health, fitness, well-being. Those are some of the catchphrases that we hear often as far as an attitude of trying to be healthy, trying to get oneself through exercise, diet, the means that we're familiar with in today's contemporary society, as far as trying to keep ourselves fit, again, healthy, and have a sense of well-being. And in this day and age, it's definitely very important to look after one's health. In times past, certainly people were concerned about getting the proper nutrition, but generally speaking, folks just got it through their diets. Excuse me. The food supply these days, though, is kind of degraded in a lot of ways, and so we have to make an effort to try to find ways to live a healthy lifestyle. And so it's a bit of a challenge in today's modern society to do that. Now, to start as for a basis, I would like to touch upon something I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, which is the etheric body. And it is helpful to keep in mind that we are comprised of different bodies that come together to make us. They are not layered upon each other and stacked upon each other, but they supersede each other, and they are intertwined with each other and are interrelated in that respect. And so the main bodies that we would consider would be the etheric body, or the energy body, the emotional body, or the astral body, and the mental body. And so these three are the main ones we consider when we think about the three aspects of man. And again, talking about the etheric or energy body, it is the body that underlies the dense physical that allows vitality and energy to move through our system. And it works its way through all of the systems through a network of superimposed fine wires, if you will, that are called nadis in the East. And these intersecting lines of energy basically go all through our body, and this allows this etheric body to give us the energy for our nervous system, and the energy that allows us to have a sense of taste, touch, all the five senses. Those things as well are factored in, and it also drives the blood through the circulatory system. And so these are the type of things that are in charge of through this etheric body, so-called. And this etheric body, this energy body, underlying the dense physical body, is also tied into these other bodies that I spoke of, the astral and the mental. And the way that it does intertwine itself and connect itself with the physical is through the dense physical, is through the glands. And that's the end result of this network of light, this intersecting lines of light, where certain spots along certain areas along the body form and congeal to make glands. And these spots of concentration in the physical body are our glands. And I spoke previously as well. Science has pretty much shown us that we are the sum total of our glandular activity. So the different glands are going to give us height, weight, proportion. Basically our physical being is determined by these glands. But again, the glands being the physical plane aspect, they are basically the end result. They're not the causative or originating factor for this flow of energy and for the way it finally makes its way through the physical vehicle, through the glands. Now again, on the other end of the etheric, if we consider the dense physical with the glandular activity and the endocrine system, then on the opposite end of this etheric or energy body, or this vital body, we have the astral body, or the emotional body, and that ties us to the dense physical, to these glands, through centers, or amalgamations that relate to a field called a center, or a chakra point. Some may be familiar with those, and we have 7 main chakras in our system. And so in certain people, certain chakras are going to be active and some are going to be dormant. And depending on the oscillation, the rotation, and the vibration of the centers, that's going to also factor in as to who we are. Again, these centers being tied into the glands and the glandular activity essentially making us who or what we are at any given time. Now, so in the future, taking into consideration that this etheric body is electromagnetic, it's an energy body, and that we are in essence electromagnetic beings, and contemporary sciences pretty adequately prove that as well, that in the future, certain methods of healing that are considered now are going to be more obsolete, and we will adapt in the future more so the methods of healing so that a magnetic healing is more considered in the future. And so again, the idea that we are electromagnetic beings and we are magnetic as a result of that as well, that magnetic healing will be more so practice in the future. And certainly some people may be familiar with the idea of magnets and metals being used as healing devices. And certainly the fact that we are electromagnetic does tie into that, to why certain people, and that really ties into the origination of the use of jewelry to begin with, as far as the precious metals like silver, gold, and precious crystals and gems and what have you that people adorn themselves with. They had an original purpose of transmitting and conducting energy, more so than being decorative or ornamental, which they've come to be more so in our day and age. But in the future, the magnetic healing aspect and aspects of vibratory stimulation, again, keeping in mind these centers and the nature of the energy as it moves through our physical body and our system, keeping in mind the flow of that energy as far as keeping optimum health and the optimum flow of energy through the system. Again, the vibratory stimulation that's going to be employed will concentrate on getting the flow back into a normal operation, so that there's no blockages, no congestion. And so as far as ideas of replacing some of the methods that we use today, surgery will eventually fall by the wayside as a result of us using more magnetic healing techniques. We won't need these invasive, intrusive methods to work internally inside the physical vehicle. We won't have to actually cut and make an incision to get inside. We'll be able to work from the outside, and technology certainly will help us to accomplish that, but also just the increasing spiritual nature of man, which is hard for some people to comprehend, but there is in actuality a revolution, a spiritual revolution, if you will, a spiritual unfolding in mankind, and it's going to bring these things to the fore more so and make them more possible in the future for us. Now again, considering that the astral body or the emotional body or the desire body is one of the three aspects of man, in the sense that again we have the etheric or energy body connected to the astral, emotional, or desire body, and then in turn connected to the mental body. That being the case, this astral body plays a big part in this whole thing, because the astral body is where the majority of disease for mankind centers itself. And so there is a saying that's somewhat familiar to people and somewhat popular, and that is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. And that ties it in for us in the sense of tying together thought and our heart. We definitely have a tie-in there, because as we think and as we work with thought, we are able to change things, and we are able to move with our thought. And so thinking, the mental aspect, and the feeling or emotional aspect are very intimately tied together. Mind is dual. There are two aspects of mind, and the aspect of lower mind is also known as desire mind. Kama manas is an Eastern term for it, desire mind. And that aspect of us keeps us tied to more material wants and needs and desires, as opposed to the higher mind, which is the abstract or the intuitional aspect of thinking. It ties us in with our higher aspects of ourselves. But the dense physical vehicle, again, most people are more centered in their emotional nature, more so than the dense physical or the mental aspect. And so by the fact that they are predisposed to this, the heart center and the emotional nature and the desire nature, that plays a big part in what drives people in their daily lives and what creates their moods. Again, it has to do with the glandular activity, but that's at a lower level. That's at the dense physical level. That's not looking at the originating or causative level. And generally speaking, the causation of disease is going to be about 25% in the etheric or energy body, about 25% in the mental body, and about 50% in the emotional. And again, it has to do with desire and blockages and how that plays in a man's life or a person's life. If we desire things in our life, which everyone has desires, aspirations, whims, wants, needs, these desires that we have, if they go unfulfilled, if we have desires for things that we're not able to fulfill in our lives, then that causes us emotional distress. And that, if that can be considered, that is the single main cause that people have problems with as a result of originating disease. People have an aspiration for something, and then as a result, they are not able to fulfill it, and so that causes, again, a blockage. This energy is not able to make this circulatory route through the system. And so as this energy is not able, soul energy in essence, is not able to make its way through the system properly, there again are stoppages or blockages that prevent this flow, and so as a result of that blockage, we're going to have, in some aspect of our physical nature, a disease come up as a result. And that's usually, they're definitely tied into, in most instances, to some emotional aspect that's unfulfilled in the average man. Now, even the aspect of the soul itself has desire. It has desire for the physical life. It has a want, if you will, to experience and be attached to a physical vessel so that it in turn can be somewhat attached to the physical aspects that it can't experience as a soul, as just a soul. So it wants to tie itself into a physical vehicle, and it has desire to do that. And that is the same desire that keeps us reincarnating from one life to the next. And as we find our way from one lifetime to the next, again, backed by this desire to incarnate, that is an aspect of all of us, it's inherent in us, that as we find our way into different lifetimes, we carry with us our debt from the previous life, and that is called karma. And that enables us to mold and choose. By virtue of karma, it's going to somewhat design for us the parents that we're looking for and the opportunities that we need that are going to best enable us to fulfill our obligations and to pay off this debt, so-called karma. And so we're going to, as a soul, peruse the physical plane and look for the best opportunity. Who are the best possible parents, the best possible location, in line with the already existing flow that's been set up, the currents that have already been set up. One wants to find themselves into the karmic conditions that are going to allow them to find the optimum place so that they can finish the work that they need. So again, karma ties into certain things as far as disease. Certain families are genetically predisposed to disease. Now, many people can be a carrier of a certain disease, like cancer for instance, and it may never actually manifest itself into a full-fledged cancer. It may stay latent inside a person for the remainder of their physical life, and they may die without it ever exploding into a full-blown cancer situation. That being the case, again, cancer can lie latent or it can be activated. And again, that does factor in somewhat to the idea of karma, and that some people are going to be more predestined to get these diseases, and some people are not going to be as predisposed to getting these diseases. Now, that's one thing that kind of, as far as people that approach the aspect of healing or the idea of healing, taking into consideration the patient and taking it into consideration karma as much as possible is very helpful, because it may be part of that person's evolutionary unfoldment and a need in their lives to experience disease or to experience a family member or a loved one going through some sort of disease. These are the life lessons that we find ourselves in, and these things happen for a reason. So many people wonder, how these things can happen, how a young person can develop cancer, for instance, or how a disease can crop up in a very young person and take them away at an early age. And people feel that that's very unfair, and some people feel that that's the sign of a cruel God, perhaps, in some instances. But if someone can consider more so the idea of karma, that we set up the circumstances, there's not some arbitrary factor that's saying, okay, well, you were bad, so you're going to be punished. We set up currents on our own, and so we have to pay off this debt that we incur. When we make a debt, we have to pay it off. It may not be immediately. It may wait until a further life, or a further life yet down the road. It really depends on circumstances as to how that's going to pan out. That being the case, again, certain karma is going to lead a disease to develop in a person, and certain times karma is going to allow a disease to lie latent and never to manifest itself in a person's healthy body. Now, considering the aspect of the physical body, the dense physical, the spleen is the area that we receive our energy, or our light, or prana is another word for it, is an Eastern word for it. This vitality that we receive, we take in through the spleen. Contemporary science has not really acknowledged that, and I'm not really too sure what contemporary science feels is the complete purpose of the spleen, but according to esoteric science, it is the bringer in, if you will, the focal point for prana, vitality, life energy to make its way into the system and then to circulate from there. Now, keeping in mind the methods of esoteric healing that can be employed, it really starts with thought and thinking and the idea of visualization. Many people are aware of the idea of visualization, either through a visualization in meditation or a visualization. Many methods. It's become more so popular, and it's found its way into the mainstream as far as the idea of thinking about something, and as a result, bringing it down to the physical plane. That is a very real science, and that is a very real aspect of esoteric science. That being the case, thought, in the sense of many of the New Thought movements and the Christian Scientist movement, can be employed to cause healthy health, to cause a disease to reside. I mean, to go away, and for a person to have health more so. And many people criticize movements like the Christian Science organization because they do not seek out contemporary medical treatment, and they, in many instances, are perceived of as letting people die without doing all at their disposal to intervene and intercede for this person's health, for saving this person. And so they've been criticized in that respect. But by the same token, they have many cases on file that substantiate and corroborate that they've been able to do what they claim they do. I don't know that firsthand, but in my own heart and mind, I've had evidence enough that I feel that the Christian Scientist movement is valid in the respect that they are able to move through thought and to heal. And the way they do that is they have a designated healing person that visualizes the body being restored if there's a cancer situation or what have you. They visualize no cancer. They visualize a restoration of the physical vehicle, the vitality flowing through the physical vehicle, and it back intact and back and healthy. And again, the flow, that's the very key, the flow of energy and vitality intact through the system. Certainly we might be familiar with the laying on of hands as well. And the idea of two or more gathered asking upon something and that it will be granted. And that many of us are familiar with that aspect as well. Certainly numbers does factor in as far as a healing. If you have people all over the world praying for a particular person, results have been seen, results have been demonstrated, and results have been recorded in this area. And so science is definitely interested in this because they see that there is evidence that this does actually work. So prayer, another idea, invocation, which I use on the show on occasion, as far as the idea of the great invocation, a prayer that I'm familiar with that I like to share with people on occasion. But the idea of calling in or bringing down energy, excuse me, and the idea of that as far as healing goes, that's something that's a bit confusing, but some people might be aware of the concept of the healer in this respect, and with a contemporary physician as well, a contemporary doctor, a modern doctor as well, it would be the same. as far as being a transmitter of healing energy, not being so much an originator, but being more so a vessel through which energy can transmit from the divine creative source, if you will, from God, through a person, through a healing person, to the patient. And that is how that process moves through the person. But again, it's not originated within the healing person. The energy is not originated within the healing person. It's just the person is merely, and I really hate to use this word, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway, a channel. The person is merely a channel for energy, and that brings up connotations of a lot of New Agey type stuff and what have you, the idea of a channel, so I really don't like to use that, but it does suit the definition as far as being, again, a transmitter, not an originator, but just merely a conduit, the vessel through which energy can move, and that also ties into the idea of radiatory healing and magnetory healing, vibratory healing, in distinction to the laying on of hands. To the laying on of hands. And so that being the case, with the transmission, again, through the physical vessel of a person, the actual laying on of hands is not necessarily so key as it might have been sometime in the past. Actually, if the hands can get within proximity of the person, then the radiatory flow can be felt and can do its work. And there doesn't have to be an actual touching, laying on of hands. There can just be within proximity of the patient, this energy flow can definitely be acknowledged, and it definitely does its work. And also, faith is something to definitely keep in mind as well. Faith as far as having confidence that indeed the healing will take place as needed, as necessary, or again, in the event of a karmic situation, perhaps the healing will not do its work and the person will need to suffer through some sort of condition. And that's part of their evolutionary process. And so that being the case, love, the healing aspect, love in particular, is what is considered when we talk about healing. More so than, again, thought is factored in as well, but not so much a willing to heal. That will is part of the father aspect. And again, when a healer chooses to heal and chooses to put hands in proximity of a person, the aspect of a radiatory healing, again, they're again just being merely a conduit. And so in that respect, the idea of not my will, but thine be done is very, very key. The healer is not invoking his will to heal the person. He is merely being a channel for the Father in heaven, or the will aspect of God. And that is the will that moves through the healer to heal, and to what degree of successful healing, and maybe in some instances non-healing. Again, if there's a need to experience a disease or discomfort or something like that, then a healing may not take, so to speak, and it may not be successful, and that's something that we have to keep in mind as well. Now again, the flow of energy, the positive flow of energy through the patient, keeping that optimum level of health by stopping blockages is very, very important. That's the key to the whole science of healing. So that being the case, it's very important to factor in the purity of the vehicles of the healer. If the person doing the healing is not pure and untainted and clean to a certain degree in a spiritual sense, then they're not going to be the best conduit, the best transmitter of divine creative energy for a healing process. And so the more pure the healer can be in one's thoughts, actions, and feelings, the better, the more effective one can be as a healer. And that's very important. If a person that's attempting to do the healing is not the fit vehicle that they should be, then again, the healing will not have the desired effects, and it may not be successful. The healer has a duty to link the soul, the heart, and the head. Again, keeping in mind, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is, tying again the feeling, emotional nature to the thinking nature, that they are tied in. But again, not in a willing manner. When a person attempts to heal, we don't invoke our will so much, or at all really, as we do just allow. We are allowing love to flow through and to hope and have faith that it does the work that we're sending through ourselves for it to do. We're not willfully trying to force a healing, so to speak. There can't be any forcing of it, because if there's a forcing upon a person, then that's tantamount or equivalent to black magic, really, by negating a person's free will and trying to impose a healing on someone. Now again, there's the idea of generational or family disease. It may stay latent within a particular person and never become active, or it may become latent, again, depending on karmic necessity to a large degree. And again, remembering of the idea that 25% of the causes of disease originate in the etheric or the energy body, 25% in the mental or the mind aspect, and 50% in the emotional. And since most of humanity is, again, polarized or centered in the emotional nature, that is why we are more so prone to emotional disease. And that's why also heart disease is very common among many people worldwide. And the idea of a broken heart very much does tie in to an actual physical breakdown of the physical vehicle, because again, if we desire something and we cannot have it in our lives, then usually a blockage is set up inside the physical vehicle, and disease at some level does commence and does set in inside the physical body. And so that's why it's very helpful for us to check oneself in one's thinking at all times as much as possible, because there has to be a balance that has to be held in check between our thinking aspect, our mind, and our heart, our feeling aspect. If we can't have some balance at some level, then one or other of these bodies is going to overrun and be the dominant body, and it's going to overweigh, or it's going to outweigh the other aspects. And so that being the case, again, that's why so many people are emotionally centered. And more so, science is coming around in the idea, too, of the mental disease aspect through the study of psychology. And that is basically nervous diseases of the nerves that manifest in some sort of psychosis, some kind of a mental deficiency. And again, the field of psychology is very much interested in trying to understand the way man thinks, because as a man thinks, so he is. And so that's very important to keep in mind thought. And one of the main proponents of the more esoteric aspects of psychology would be Jung. He factored in the soul. He was very interested in how the soul factored in to the mind, the thinking aspect, and he understood the soul as the originating causative impetus for the physical vehicle. And so he started there at that originating point, as opposed to how modern medicine generally looks at the physical vehicle first and tries to treat the physical vehicle. Now that is equivalent to basically if a train stops running, to go check the caboose and see if the caboose is functioning fine, without taking into consideration the engine of the steam engine of a train. Looking at the end result, not looking at the originating causative factor. If we want to get to the cause of disease, we have to start with the engine and not worry about the dense physical vehicle or the caboose or the end result, the non-factor, if you will. The physical vehicle in many instances is a non-factor, because all of our emotions, all of our thoughts and our feelings start again in the mental and emotional body and then carry their way down to the physical nature. And so they don't originate. No thought or no feeling originates here. It originates outside of the dense physical vehicle, and it manifests its way through feeling, thought, and that sort of thing. Now, certainly there are some programs that are being engaged in that at the higher levels by certain camps who I choose to refer to as those who wish to enslave us, that are trying to bring in certain certain health programs and certain things through the existing health programs under the auspices of helping and under the guise of goodwill, but in actuality, some of these things that are being done are not very helpful, and they are very deadly, as a matter of fact, in some instances, and that's something that we have to be aware of as well. Certainly, as far as the vaccine aspects go, there's a lot of research as far as what's in the vaccines these days, whether or not they're actually doing what they allege that they're supposed to be doing, and that sort of thing. And people are more so are finding a lot of nasty stuff in the vaccines, and the vaccines are causing a lot of health problems, especially in the very young children. They're causing a lot of the crib death that is noticed, and the early autism and things like that are direct results of inoculation, immunization that all of these young children have to go through. They have to get so many shots these days. It's completely insane. I can't fathom it. And also, in the event of animal transplants, in the idea of supposedly the pig's genetic structure and makeup is very similar to the humans, and so the idea of implanting pig organs into a person to restore them or to prolong life is popular in some aspects of science, but that really is black magic. When you're bringing an animal aspect into the physical vehicle, we are human, we're not animal. Well, actually we are animal and divine, but to bring in an animal is taking a step very far down on the evolutionary ladder. For us to bring an animal part into our physical nature, there are certainly much better ways to go about doing that are much more in line with esoteric science, that are much more healthy, that are more along a white magic, if you will, as opposed to black magic. Putting a pig organ inside a person, people are very fearful of death, and so they are, as a result, willing to do a lot of things they wouldn't normally do to perpetuate their lives. People are deathly afraid of dying, and so they'll take the pig organ without thinking of the ramifications, without full understanding, and certainly contemporary science, the doctors and the surgeons, in most instances, are not aware of the ramifications of putting a pig organ in to a person from a spiritual or causative or originating standpoint. They're only looking at the physical plane aspect and, we'll rig this person with this animal to keep them running. And that, to me, is an unfortunate aspect. The idea, though, of the stem cells is a little bit more promising, and that again is along the lines more so of a spiritual outlet to this very problem. If we can grow from our own organic and genetic material another organ, then that is of us. It's from us. It's not from an animal, and it's not. You're not subject to the not taking of the organs. Sometimes people have an organ transplant and the donor organ doesn't take. It's not received into the body well. I can't think of the term I'm trying to use, but it's not accepted by the body, and so the body rejects it. It's rejected. That's the term I'm trying to use. It's rejected by the body, and so with a stem cell, if it's from you originally, it's part of you, then there should be no aspect of the rejecting of organs if it's actually from us. Now, certainly, there are certain individuals as well that have tried to bring about some ideas of healing and to further have a fuller information as far as what's going on the health front from many angles. And certainly, if we can remember around the turn of last century, and Chris Athanas has done a good job of bringing out some videos on a particular gentleman named Royal Rife, who came up with a very powerful microscope that could see disease at the smallest levels and could in turn identify the electrical nature, the magnetic nature of a disease, and so a counter frequency, an electric frequency, a counter frequency could be applied to the disease, and it would basically obliterate it, and it would take it out of the physical vehicle, and it would no longer, the conditions would no longer exist. And so that information did come out around the early part of last century, but was suppressed. And certain factions have taken some of that information and are still working with it behind the scenes. But as far as mainstream, it's not really considered accurate, authentic science by many in the mainstream, unfortunately. But that type of technology is also going to be part and parcel more so of future esoteric healing as far as the idea of electrical healing. Because again, if we are electromagnetic beings and our magnetic ratio, if you will, is off to some degree, and that also ties into acidity versus alkaline in the physical nature as well. That all ties in as well. If we're too much of one or the other, if we're too positive or too negative, and we don't have that balance, then that's going to result in a disease. And again, keeping that positive flow, the good cohesive flow, and the good electrical balance in the physical body is very key to keeping the even keel, the even health. And another gentleman that I'd like to mention that's had been featured on Access, courtesy of Chris Athanas and some other folks as well, Dr. Len Horowitz, who's done a lot of research as far as Ebola, AIDS, and unfortunately how these particular diseases were man-made, manufactured, and put into the population, into the population purposefully, because I'm sure many are familiar with some of the programs as far as population control, population reduction. There are some big numbers out there that are, some camps are trying to meet these big numbers and to try to have mass population reduction. The only way that they can meet these numbers is by really getting rid of mass amounts of people. Literally billions of people have to go by the wayside for this program to meet the numbers that they're throwing out there, the 80% numbers and what have you that they're trying to get this earth stripped down to, so that supposedly it can be sustainable in some people's perception. That to me is unfortunate. I feel like that the 6 billion inhabitants of this planet can exist with the resources that we have. There's plenty of resources. It's just a matter of wise distribution. And certainly if we consider the fact of those that wish to enslave us, there are many different programs that they have in place that try to limit us. As far as I spoke of before on a previous show, the HARP program, and that a program just re-aired recently on Access that Chris Athanas put out that discusses the HARP project, that basically shoots electricity into the atmosphere, charges the atmosphere, and anytime you're going to do that sort of thing, you're going to affect physical bodies, because again, we're electromagnetic, so if you have a system that's shooting electricity out into the atmosphere, by virtue of that, it's going to affect people. There's no way around it. There's no way it's not going to affect people. Just like the tests of the people that live by the power generating facilities and by the power lines, they tend to have more birth anomalies, and more birth defects, and more health issues, more so. Because again, if we are electromagnetic by nature, then certainly if we put ourselves in the proximity of electromagnetic fields, they're going to affect us. There's just no way that they can't, unless we have the proper shielding and the proper defense mechanism to avoid that. And unfortunately, the system that we have as far as our way of transferring power that we've employed is very antiquated, and it's perpetuating these diseases, unfortunately. And there's many people that are unaware and ignorant of that, but there are many people that are aware of it, and they keep these programs perpetuated. And that being the case also, the fluoride, the neurotoxins in fluoride and aspartame that basically kill off our response mechanism. This free flow of energy, electricity, the vitality that goes through our body can be short-circuited and stifled in many respects as well through the diet, through the food system. Fluoride in the water and the hard chemicals and what have you that are in the water that we drink. That's part of it. And also as far as the food supply, all of the food that's the Franken food as well, the genetically manipulated food as well, that's not as nourishing and as good for us as it once was. All of these things definitely factor in as far as our promoting our good health and well-being. As I have spoken of before, it is very crucial for as many bodies as possible to stay healthy, keep optimum health, because we need to keep our wits about us, we need to be informed citizens, and we need to be able to be constructive citizens. And to be able to do that, we need the proper nourishment, food, water, and a level of well-being, which ties in very much to stress. Stress is a big factor in that, and that ties in very much to the mental nature and the emotional nature as far as how stress brings us down and leads to anxiety and panic. Again, since we're becoming more mentally disposed, more mental diseases and more preoccupation with the mental aspect of man is coming on these days, so we see that more so and more so. I would like to take a call and see what's going on this evening. Hello, caller.
Hi, Corey. This
Hi.
is Joy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm calling because I'd like you to go back and further explain your reasons for not considering animal transplants, especially when you're talking about stem cell research. If it weren't for animal research before they got to human stem cells, they wouldn't be able to even consider human stem cells at this point.
Well, they always are, all this vivisection and all this using of animals. The physiology of the human and the physiology of the animal is similar. That's agreed upon. I think contemporary science and esoteric science would agree that their physiology is similar. The genetics of the pig are similar to the genetics of the human. And as far as the methods that are employed to go through that process to find a method to use that science for humanity, that's unfortunate that science still does that. I think there's a lot of politics behind the scenes that perpetuate that practice, even though it's very antiquated, it's not effective. And again, the idea that we take in an animal into our system, even the eating of animal flesh, again, we are magnetic beings, and so eating of animal flesh has magnetism. It has we have a lower self and we have a higher self. We have a spiritual self that is based on intuition, and we have a lower self that's based on instinct, which we have in common with animals, animal instinct. And for us to willingly take into ourselves a physical aspect of an animal, according to esoteric science, it's black magic. I don't really know how to explain it much fuller than that, except that you're taking in a lower aspect into yourself. Again, stem cell research, if we can take from ourselves, from our own genetic material, something that is of us, then most assuredly there shouldn't be the rejection aspect. And it should be a healthy, more spiritual way. Now, maybe you're familiar with the idea that people that take in organs from donors take on characteristics of the person that they've received the organ from. They may have a physical craving that person had before, that they're able to corroborate through their living relatives and what have you, that sort of thing. We find correspondences between the deceased person that donated the organ and how that organ affects the physical person that takes in that organ, if it's not rejected. Now, that being the case, yes?
Do you believe that mechanical parts, such as a mechanical heart, is not lower than humankind?
That to me is that's another. Well, let me just finish the idea about taking the pig. So if we're going to take in another person's organ and we're going to have aspects of them attached to our being by virtue of that, then if we take in a pig, then we're taking in a pig. We're taking in a lower aspect. We're taking in a pig into our physical vehicle. I can't make it much simpler than that. As far as taking in the artificial hearts and all that stuff, pacemakers, things like that, the nanotechnology with little machines going through your body, cleaning up and taking care of you, people are very afraid of death. And people want to live past their normal expected time. I mean, I believe in reincarnation. We have multiple chances to come back and pay off our debts and to do the work that we need to do. Not everybody believes in reincarnation. Many people believe it's a one-shot deal, and so they claw and hold on with everything that they have to physical life. They are afraid of they're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of their spiritual nature. More people that have a more spiritual approach are not as afraid of death. If you don't have some kind of a spiritual grounding, you're going to be more prone to these materialistic tendencies, and you're going to want to do the things necessary to use technology at whatever, all technology at your disposal, whatever means necessary to perpetuate your life at the expense of others. It's just like taking in a Chinese dissident's organ into your body. There's nothing right about that. For people to die so that others can live, that's very wrong. That's about the long and the short of it. Anything else you care to add?
No, I would, like to look at the esoteric expression of looking at mechanical organs further, and see if anybody's done any discussions about that, because I do believe mechanics are less than human. We can't invent ourselves. We can't leave something here on the earth beyond what we are. I do believe we are the hierarchy of this plane.
Right.
And I think when we're taking in mechanicals, it's just pretty much the same as doing the animal thing.
Right.
And one of the things I'm really considering is the new research regarding retinas that they're doing with dogs in Houston. And the labs have got to a point where they can put computer chips in the retina of a dog,
Right.
and
right.
they're talking about doing this to retinas of humans.
It's always starting with the animal. Consider that. They always start with the animal, and they say, oh, look, we've got it with the animal. Now let's move it up to the human. That's always the process that they use. And that doesn't make it any better of a process. I mean, just because they can demonstrate that they can use it in an animal does not, in my mind, mean it's going to be useful technology that can be adapted to humanity. In some instances, yes, but I don't know. Some of these cyborg ideas, as far as making us part man, part machine, does not appeal to me at all. Not one iota. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. I'm going to have to let you go because I have other callers, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello
caller.
there.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. Yes, for those, a part of it also, when you're talking about 80% world reduction, for people out there who are interested in that aspect of it, my favorite engine is Google, or use whatever you want, but it's spelled EUGENICS, and that spells eugenics. Type
Certainly.
that in your search engine, and that will give you a lot more information for those out there who are interested.
Right.
And also, I was surfing the web, I came across Prince Philip, how he said if he were an animal, he would come back as a deadly virus to eliminate mass portions of our population.
Right, I've heard that as well. And other people on Access have brought those points out as well, a little bit more eloquently than myself. That is very true, and that's why I didn't really get into the 80% reduction so much, because other people have really gone into it in greater detail and better than myself, I feel. But definitely there are agendas out there as far as the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the access to food and water, and the plans in place to keep population in check. There are those that feel that they know better than us, that feel like they are our caretakers, and that feel that they have to impose their will on us because we can't take care of ourselves, so they have to do it for us, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that I think the people who are like the ruling elite, some of them genuinely do believe that mankind has become a plague on the earth, so they want to reduce the population, but they're not going to sacrifice themselves.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
Yeah, and you know, and they probably have an attitude that, well, you know, maybe some really do believe it, that, well, if the world's going down ecologically, then we're not going to go down with the masses, so we're going to do what we can to eliminate the masses because we're not going down with them.
Some people have more of a feeling that they deserve to be alive than other people, and so they, at the cost of other lives, should maintain their life, and I can't get into that thinking. Thank you for your call. I do appreciate that. Have a nice evening. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing there, brother?
Good. Yourself?
All right. Well, good. Hey, you're pretty intelligent there, you know?
Thank you.
You talk about a lot of issues, and it's I think it's pretty, you know, interesting stuff. I'm over here tripping out on the background stuff.
That's courtesy
so
of our friend Chris
some
Athanas.
mushrooms or something.
It helps to...
listen, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay. What I was going to ask was, what do you think about, you know, the fact that old people just smell like formaldehyde all the time? I don't understand that, you know?
Okay. Well, to answer that, I don't know how much you're joking, how much you're serious. The older we get, things set in to where the body starts burning itself up. And the life thread that attaches itself, where the soul attaches itself to the body, that life thread starts to recede and withdraw itself. And as that thread is withdrawn, the life force itself is withdrawn. And basically the life is in the blood. And as that is withdrawn, then the vitality, the essence of the person is not, you know, in there like it used to be. It's less. And so again, the body tends to burn itself up. And that's how this aging diseases and what have you start to set in more so. And that's, that might factor into what you're describing. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I just got one theory based on 2 words. Fact bashers unite, fact bashers unite, fact bashers unite.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that comment. I have no idea what you're talking about, but thanks for taking the time to hold and chat with us. Hello, caller.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, how are you? May I help you?
What you doing? Hey.
All right, then. Anyway, I'd like to go ahead and recap a bit. and speak a bit again about, in particular, the emotional nature and the desire nature of man. That if there is something a person wants, and whether that's if somebody has a desire to have a relationship with another person or what have you, and they can't have it, that is going to create a blockage or a shortage, and that's going to lead to some sort of disease likely, or some kind of dis-ease, if you will. And also, again, the idea that as we are becoming more and more mental, that increasingly so, more psychological disorders are becoming more prominent, and you see the emphasis on the psychotropic drugs and getting everybody on Ritalin and that sort of thing, getting everybody to be Stepford kids in essence, so that they can be more easily controlled, more easily conditioned. That's basically the bottom line with that. And these programs, as far as trying to alleviate anxiety and panic, because those are so prevalent in today's society, anxiety and panic, we find that, again, because of the emotional is so tied into the mental, and that we are so predominantly mental these days, increasingly more so and more so, we're more thinking individuals, that's why panic and anxiety are more in the fore now than they have been in the past. That used to not even be an issue in the past, because psychological disorders just didn't crop up, because the thinking apparatus was not as refined as it is now. And since it has changed itself and evolved, we now are able to, we now, by virtue of that, are victim more so to the psychological diseases and the neurosis and the nervous disorders, and again, panic and anxiety. And that's as far as trying to alleviate those things, really it's just a matter of more so trying to center oneself and not being predisposed to the emotional or the mental, but trying to keep balance and a good flow of energy. And there's not one, ultimate trick to do that. It's just a matter of checking oneself more so, checking one's progress and checking one's thinking and one's feelings as often as possible, keeping that at the forefront of one's thinking, so that we don't lapse into the kind of thinking or the kind of emotion that's going to cause us stress, disorder, disease, unrest, and this mental neurosis that I spoke of. Hello, caller.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a few questions about the vaccines that they're putting cancer cells in.
Yes.
My 3-year-old son has cancer, and the doctors don't really know if, he just developed it at an early age or if he was indeed born with it. But I'm a nurse, and at this particular hospital in Austin, the Children's Hospital, for instance, I have seen a lot of new cancer cases in the last year. It's just amazing. In particular, this type of cancer that my son has, which is pretty rare. It's estimated that nationwide there's only 500 new cases, and in this given city, people have never really seen more than 2 cases at once, and now there's about maybe 7, 8. So it's extremely high. But my question to you is, how do you explain karma in this particular situation, if indeed these people are putting cancer cells in vaccines? How does karma play into this? I mean, is it kind of like an evolutionary process that your spirit or soul goes through, that you're destined to get it, or what?
Well, let me answer that. I only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to get to that as much as possible. But we are, through karmic conditions, we do put ourselves, as a soul, we're aware of our opportunities to find the proper parents and what have you. And we're going to go with the flow as far as probably being the same nationality for a number of incarnations, the same sex and what have you, and carrying with us the desires that we've had from the previous life and the karma that we're speaking of. And in the instance of a very young person, generally they haven't gotten to the age where they're going to be able to pay off karma. So in that instance, it's more so for the people around that young person. Now, in the instance of the people that are, if indeed this is what happened and this is how this was contrived by somebody's scheming, then they in turn obviously have a heavy price to pay themselves by especially knowingly. Unknowingly, then there's some leeway for people. These healthcare professionals that are giving these shots aren't always aware. Now, certainly they have a responsibility to know, and that's...
Yeah, but there's no way they could possibly know.
Right, exactly. But the people that are purposefully doing that at the higher levels definitely have a price to pay. And I would say, and this is kind of a delicate topic to bring up, it's a very personal topic, obviously, with you in particular.
Yeah.
But I would say that...
But all along, I've always just felt that this just doesn't belong in him. It just... His grandmother is Buddhist, and she's actually been doing some healing work for the last, I think, 2 months. As far as the same thing that you were talking about, channeling energies and what have you. And I've seen other people do the same thing, but they put their hands or kind of like do a sweeping motion.
Right.
But
that's again the radiation
Yeah.
healing.
Well, she doesn't do that. She just puts her hand over his head and then picks her other hand, the opposite hand, up in the air. And she told me that she doesn't have to do that because all she's doing is channeling energy through him. She does.
Right.
She's not. That it's
She's not originating it. In other words, she's just a vessel for that.
Yes. So, I think it's helping him as far as him getting strength and stuff. I don't know the depth of it or what, but
well, I would say if you're a person of any faith and that you have a support group, that's very important with any illness in any family. A support group is ultra important. If you have that support group and you have a network of people that you can depend on to help you out, to be supportive, uplifting, positive, and to, if you have any kind of spiritual inclination, to pray, to contemplate the situation, and to try to find a fuller understanding, and not just, so many people are prone to why me. If you could have more of an understanding of it, try to, get past the emotional aspect and try to rationally understand why these things are taking place. Again, I like to add one other point too. The soul does not permanently attach itself to any person until age 7, generally, esoteric science says that generally. So that being the case, if a person were to pass away before age 7, the soul was not permanently attached. Again, so karma wouldn't really factor in. Now, there's no reason why your son won't have a recovery, whether that be a miraculous recovery, an instantaneous or almost overnight recovery. There's no reason why that can't take place as well. Certainly, I would say karma would factor in, again, more so for the people around this young person, not so much for that person's karma, but that...
But in what aspect? As far as okay, I've heard that also, that it's more for the people around him or for his parents that are, his dad and I are really suffering through this. But I think my husband is taking it worse than I am. I'm
going to have to really wrap this up, and I apologize, but we're going to have to very, very briefly wrap this up. Is your husband a person of faith or not so much?
No, I don't think he's gotten to that point. No.
Okay. Well, I do thank you for your call, and I definitely will, give you my energy as much as possible, and hopefully other folks out there will consider you as well, and consider other people. If people would be willing to consider the people out there that have disability, and to throw your energy out there, hoping that the will of God be done. And I'd like to encourage everyone to stick around and watch Chris Athanas coming up with the Reality Expander TV show coming up. I'd like to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. Thanks a lot, Austin. You can catch us here every Tuesday live on Channel 10 from 8 to 9. Thanks, Austin. Sorry I can't get to the last call, but have a nice evening.